call to order the July 18th, 2024 Planning Commission meeting. Please join me in the flag pledge. Ms. Morrow, will you please call the roll of members?
Kaluza.
Here.
Tinsley.
Here.
Marovich.
Here.
Zimmer. Here. Ike.
Here.
Swanson.
Here.
Agenda item number 3, approval of the June 20th, 2024 Planning Commission meeting minutes. Fellow commissioners, any changes? Then the meeting minutes will stand. Agenda item number 4, Ms. Jensen, are there any announcements?
Thank you, Chair Marovich. There are 2 handouts for the Planning Commissioners this evening. One is the Parks, Recreation, and Natural Resources Committee meeting minutes regarding the Sundance Lakeville Second Addition preliminary plat. And then there is an email from a neighboring homeowner regarding the same item, Sundance Lakeville Second Addition. And then just for your information, the August 1st Planning Commission meeting will be a work session, and the August 15th Planning Commission meeting has been shifted to August 22nd. And those are the announcements.
All right, thank you. Agenda item number 5, public hearing for Nikolay. I'm going to say your last name wrong. Okay. This is to consider the application of Nikolay Zaytsev for a conditional use permit to allow a detached accessory building with a combined accessory building area exceeding 2,000 square feet on a single-family lot in the RS1 single-family residential district, and to allow more than one detached accessory building located at 16394 Lameth Trail. And to present a brief overview is Nikolay. If you'd like to come up and give us a brief overview. Thank you.
Well, so I have to tell what I'm trying to build? Or?
Yeah.
Okay. I live in the house for 12 years, and my dream was to build a garage because I have a 2-car garage, but only 1 car can fit in there. So everybody was telling me I cannot build because I already have a sauna on my property outside the building, until my neighbor came along and he built a huge garage. And I have toys, I have 4-wheelers, I got 2 boats, 2 trailers, everything parked outside. Even my side-by-side and 0-turn and 4-wheeler, snowmobile, everything parked outside. So when my neighbor built the same exact garage I'm trying to build, I stopped by to him and said, oh yeah, just start doing this, and here it comes. Now I applied for fill up the application and see if I can build it.
All right.
It's gonna be only for the storage for my toys.
Okay.
I got 2.5 acres land, so I don't see why not.
All right. Thank you.
That's it?
And then, yep, you can have a seat.
Good evening, Planning Commissioners. The request this evening from Mr. Zaytsev is to, as he mentioned, is to construct a accessory building on his property. And this requires a conditional use permit, one for the fact that he already has 1 detached accessory building, and I'll show that in a survey in a moment. And the other thing is that the cumulative square feet is larger than 2,000 square feet in the RS1 district. The RS1 district limits, or the 2,000 square feet includes attached garage space, which is 700 square feet, and I think 352 for the sauna building that's in the back. And that was constructed maybe 10 to 15 years ago or so. And I do recall Mr. Zaytsev asking about a second building at that time. I informed him that it would require a conditional use permit, but now he's come forward to do so. The property is also in the Shoreland Overlay District of Kingsley Lake. And there is one item of that regulation, that fact, in that shoreland district is that it limits the impervious surface area of the property to 25%, and I'll get to that. This is an aerial photo that shows the vicinity. This is County Road 5, Kenwood Trail, Klamath Trail, the YMCA camp. Kingswood Drive is this corner here. The driveway for this property used to come through Kingswood Drive, and now comes in this off of Klamath Trail. Maybe there were two driveways. The house is in this location, the other accessory buildings in this location here, and the proposal is to construct the building in this particular location toward the west end of the property. This is a recent aerial photo from April of this year. You can see he has accessory buildings in this area. He has a large paved, outdoor parking area in this location, and the building would be located in this vicinity here. This is a close-up of the same area. The survey of the property shows the building would be located 71 feet from the west property line, 81 feet from the north property line. Again, this is the location of the house, the other accessory building, and the wetland. South setback would be 74 feet to the adjacent property. As was mentioned, this property owner here, the Planning Commission, I think in 2022, approved a conditional use permit for a similar size accessory building. And one of the comments that I made to the applicant here is that this building needed to match the house, similar as to this building matches this house, as close as possible. It doesn't have to be the same materials. So there is a drop in topography from this location of approximately 10 feet. That may require some retaining walls. Those are typically handled at the time of building permit review. If walls are taller than 4 feet, it requires a structural design as required by building code. This is just a rendering of, I think, to illustrate the dimensions of the building. So it's approximately 2,080 square feet. Total cumulative square footage would be about 3,100 square feet for the entire property. Exterior materials, I was informed that they would be a cement fiberboard siding, gray and metal or shingle dark colored roof, dark gray roof to match the house. And what I'm recommending or suggesting is that revised plans for addressing this be submitted prior to the city council consideration so we all understand what we're looking at. This is a visual street view from the property in the vicinity of where the building will be located. You can see the ground sloping down approximately right here. So it's going to be in this vicinity here. This is the view from Klamath Trail looking south. The applicant has tended to park this trailer out on the lawn property. We've not received any complaints about that until recently when the public hearing notices went out, and I hadn't noticed until I went out there. But nothing could be parked on the grass, vehicles or trailers of any kind. This is a view from Kingswood in the direction of where the building would be located. I included this because I wanted, or actually both of these, because I wanted to understand, Planning Commission understand the existing landscaping that's in place, which led to my recommended stipulation that if any of this landscaping is replaced, that it should be replaced with evergreen trees to screen the accessory building. And that is a condition that we typically have for these large buildings if screening is necessary or determined necessary. There are stipulations that are included in my conditional use permit report. The driveway, and this is just a summary, but the driveway to the building must be paved. Exterior material similar to the house. Maintain screening between building streets and adjacent properties. No sanitary sewer is allowed to the building. And also no commercial use or storage of on the property or the accessory building. So I will stand for any questions. There's 11 recommended stipulations and also findings of fact.
Thank you. And this is a public hearing, so anyone wishing to speak on this agenda item, you can please come forward.
Hi there. Neighbor Curtis Scholes down the hill a little bit, not the one next door with the accessory building, but one of the neighbors who also has a large accessory building that went through the process a few years ago too. I just want to speak in favor of Nick doing the building. Like he mentioned, it will help get some of his toys off of his driveway and space. And I just think that we're in a neighborhood that's, you know, late 70s, early 80s, and not a lot of people are doing improvements, and it's good to see neighbors doing some improvements to their property. So I appreciate that.
And I'm sorry if I missed it. Can you state your name and address for the record?
Curtis Scholes at 16445 Kingswood Court.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Anyone else wishing to speak on this agenda item?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
make a motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, the public hearing for this agenda item is now closed. Fellow commissioners, any comments?
I would have a question for our associate planner, Mr. Dempsey. I noted that you talked about multiple driveways. Are they both still active? I'm not sure what our rules are on that, so just need some clarification.
No, the driveway onto Kingswood Kingswood Drive, I think, is not in place anymore. You can see where there was an opening there, and maybe it's driven on, but it's not access to the property, the main driveway that comes off of Klamath.
Thank you. I just wanted that clarification on the record.
Yes.
This is about as, normal of a conditional use permit as we get. This is kind of a unique neighborhood in Lakeville with a lot larger lots, and looks like a lot of his neighbors have similar things. I think it, totally appropriate for a lot that size, and I'm glad that, he found out that he can come to us and get a conditional use permit, and hopefully be able to help get some better screening for his toys, and I'm fully in support.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
question for Mr. Dempsey. You had mentioned potentially wanting to add or change one of the stipulations. Can you just clarify what that was?
Let's see, what did I have? I'm not sure what I had to change.
I think you were talking about submittal of revised plans prior to city council
I'm sorry,
consideration.
yeah. No, that's true. Yeah, thank you. My suggestion is, and I don't know if it needs to be a stipulation, but I think it'd be advisable for him moving forward, perhaps, to provide an accurate elevation of maybe a material sample and something, rendering of that building that is the intended colors.
So essentially a stipulation that says a submittal reflecting the proposed building materials should be made prior to city council consideration.
Correct. And the city council potentially then would be August 5th, I would believe. So I would need to have that no later than next Tuesday or Wednesday.
I guess the question is, are other planning commissioners comfortable with that proposed stipulation?
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioner. Mr. Zaytsev, can you meet that deadline?
I'll try to explain if I can. So the building rendering was kind of a yellowish color. It was very rough in terms of detail. And we like to see a building sample rendering of the building with the actual proposed colors, something that states what the roof material will be, what the siding material will be, and maybe a photo image of a product, that siding product that says, here, this is the color we're looking at.
little bit of side and the back have a green color hardy. We have this, we bought this way, already painted, and my wife's gonna repaint it. She's talking about every day. So what we're gonna do is, whatever color we're gonna choose for that shed or garage, we're gonna paint that and the house at the same time. Or we're gonna hire somebody so they can paint, so it will be 100% the same color. Front of my house have a stone, whole house. And that's stone from Menards. I contacted Menards and they said we still sell this, but it will be big to garage. It won't be a lot of stone, but I'll make little posts on the side so it'll look like front. So I'll make sure it's matched close as I can.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Yeah.
So I think the big thing you're looking for is just to get that in writing
Yes.
to go with the materials and go to city council, correct?
Yes, and I can verify the information it has given me, whether I can interpret it that way. I have no problem working with the applicant on this. I've been working with them for a long time on this. The other thing is that we can tie it to the building permit. You know, we won't issue the permit until there's a clear understanding that the building that's being constructed now will match the house given a certain amount of time, so it doesn't go on while they're deciding how to paint the house. It is important that these buildings be as close as possible, and the reason this is an issue is that if the building was constructed the color it was, I don't think we'd be comfortable with that at all. The color that is proposed on the plans that were submitted. I think Nikolay understands that.
So do we need that additional stipulation or no?
Yeah, I think for comfort.
I would be more comfortable if we had the stipulation there, if the rest of the planning commission also believes that.
I would be comfortable with that stipulation too, and I think, you know, I have great trust in city staff to work with the applicant to make sure that his project is successful before it goes to city council and before a building permit is issued.
So 12 stipulations as amended.
Correct.
All right. Unless there's anything else, I think we're ready for a motion.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move to recommend approval of the Nikolay Zaytsev conditional use permit subject to the 12 stipulations listed in the July 12th, 2024 planning report as amended, and approval of the findings of fact dated July 18th, 2024.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Ms. Morrow, will you please call a roll call vote?
Kaluza,
Aye.
Tinsley,
Aye.
Marovich,
Aye.
Zimmer,
Aye.
Ink,
Aye.
Swenson.
Aye.
All right, and then again, when will that go in front of city council?
August 5th.
All right. Well, best of luck, Nikolay, on your accessory building. Thank you. All right, agenda item number 5B is a public hearing for the Sundance Lakeville Second Addition. This is a preliminary plat for one townhome lot to include 13 buildings and 167 dwelling units, one common club building, 9 single-family residential lots, and 1 outlot to be known as Sundance Lakeville Second Addition. And number 2, a conditional use permit to allow multi-family dwellings, townhome buildings on a single parcel. And here to give a brief overview of that project is Ryan Saylor.
Madam Chair, fellow commissioners, my name is Ryan Seiler. I'm Vice President of Development for Timberland Partners. Thanks for letting me be here tonight. This is kind of a reintroduction of this project that was had a comp plan amendment and a rezoning back in November of 2023. So I'll try to keep it brief tonight. I know Mr. Dempsey's going to cover a lot of this in a staff report, but it's a 14.74 acre parcel. We're proposing 176 total units, 167 stacked flats and 9 single family homes, along with a 5,000 square foot amenity space that'll include a fitness center, club room. We'll have on-site management and leasing, outdoor pool and kitchen, dog park, and pet spa. This is a rendering of the site, so this is potentially what it will look like. This is looking at it from the southwest corner towards the northeast. So you can see on the southwest corner is our clubhouse with our outdoor pool. And then directly to the east are the two medical buildings that Davis has recently proposed and been approved for. The 167 townhome units are on 11 acres approximately in the middle of the site, and then in the northwest corner on the left side of your screen are the 9 single-family homes on about 3.5 acres. Although we're here mostly to talk about the details of the plan, not really to talk about zoning or if the use is appropriate, I just wanted to point out that they are high quality units. Construction, we own our projects, our properties long-term, so which typically means 10 or 20 years or longer. So they're built to last. They're expensive to build. Our average rents on the one-bedroom units are approximately $1,800. Our two bedrooms, $2,200. Our three-bedroom units start at $2,700, and then the 9 single-family homes will range anywhere from $2,900 to $3,900 per month. So they're really meant for young professionals that want to establish roots in the community, eventually maybe have kids, be in a good school district that Lakeville has. And then we're seeing a lot of downsizers empty nesters who maybe want to sell their house, but they're not ready for traditional apartment living yet, so this is a good fit for them. This is just some examples of projects that we have built. These are Sundance projects. This is a deal we just finished in Omaha. On the left, that's a real exterior of a building. I'll note, on a previous slide, I actually had the exterior rendering of what Lakeville will look like. You guys have a much more strict brick requirements and exterior requirements, so they'll be even higher in quality on the exterior than what you're looking at here. And on the right's the inside of the clubhouse. This is a completed project in Woodbury, so just for reference, we have done this in other areas in the city. And I just included this photo and then this photo to show, we really try to make these feel neighborhood, with the neighborhood feel and connected into the neighborhood. This particular project ties into a neighborhood with city streets. So those streets, those neighborhoods use our streets to drop onto an arterial and then get onto the freeway, which you can see to your right there. So with these infill sites especially, connection to the neighborhood is something we really strive for. I'll just close with key points. As I mentioned, the site was rezoned for this use. It was downzoned in November. It was previously commercial, which, and it's owned by a grocery store company, so at one point they were trying to do a grocery store. Costco has looked at this. It's had a lot of potentially higher impact or intensity uses, so this was a downzoning. The project conforms with all the current code requirements, which I'm sure Mr. Dempsey will go over. Meets or exceeds setback requirements, exceeds parking requirements, well below the height limitation. Under, I think, the current zoning, we could actually add 2 stories. We're not going to, I don't want to. I'm just saying we're well below what could be built here. We're not requesting any city, county, or state subsidy. We really tried hard to work on the land transition, going from single family to multifamily to the transition to retail commercial on 162nd. We feel like the uses are complementary. The medical that has been approved, we kind of sought for that use between all of us. The medical uses are basically an 8 to 5 use. So residents from our development, working residents will be probably out before 8 and then home after 5, where the medical will have hours that kind of are the opposite of that. And then lastly, it's all locally based development team. Timberland's based in Bloomington. We're family owned. We've been around since 1992. Like I said, we own with the long term in mind, and we manage all of our own properties. We don't do any third party management for anybody else. It'll be built by RT Residential, who's part of Tradition Companies, who's based in Lakeville. I'm sure many of you are familiar with a lot of the homes or subdivisions they built around Lakeville. They're a quality builder, family owned as well. And then we have a locally based architect in Bloomington, and our civil engineer is also locally based. So with that, I won't take up any more time, but the team is here, the entire team, to answer any questions that come up after the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
So for my presentation, Corey, if you can bring that up, I will expand on what Mr. Saylor had introduced. Corey, are you working on the PowerPoint? There we go. I wasn't questioning you, Corey. Thank you. And behind the window in there, can't see him. Anyway, so Timberland Partners, there's a lot of background to this property and actually to this proposed development. There's some history here. And what's being requested here this evening is the preliminary plat of the residential portion of the concept plan that was laid out with the medical building preliminary plat that the city council recently approved July 1st, I believe. This property is requiring a preliminary plat of one townhome lot, but it includes, I think, 13 buildings. That requires a conditional use permit. There's also 9 single-family homes proposed, and then and it's all on one 15.75 acre property. This is the commercial portion of the property here. And the purple represents the M1 mixed use I-35 corridor district, which is a zoning district that allows apartments, it allows townhomes, higher density. It was encouraged on properties, this district was encouraged on properties that are near transfer facilities, near our major corridors, this one being I-35. And then the single family, 9 lots. This property was split like this with medium density residential zoning and RST2 single family and 2-family district zoning prior to the rezoning. And RST2 is the zoning of the property to the west. So the property had been formerly agriculture, also a gravel pit sometime in the late 80s, early 90s. It was zoned single family up until about 2000, when after the Interstate 35 interchange was constructed, the off-ramp and on-ramp streets were constructed, and the thinking at that point, because of the corner of the interstate and County Road 46, was that this would be residential zone properties. And the first developments in that area are the commercials to the east, which is the auto repair shop and the retail next to that. There's also a vacant property adjacent to this property we're talking about. This is the subject property here. It shows, except here, this right here is Streefland Addition property that's to the west. But the outline here is the property that we're referring to this evening, with this one being Sundance at Lakeville here. This is an image from 1991. I included this because it shows before the County Road 46 was constructed. This is County Road 5, Kenwood Trail, and this was a gravel road for many years that came down parallel to Kenyon. This is also before the on-ramps or off-ramps were constructed. This is, I think it's Sunnyside Manufactured Home Park, which is in place back then, and also the single-family home development in Burnsville was in place at that time. As you can see here, this was largely agriculture, I think prior to when the gravel mining occurred in this area, and prior to the other developments to the west. There was a comprehensive plan amendment that was proposed by Timberland Partners in 2022. The city council did not approve that request for rezoning and the comprehensive plan amendment with the idea they were concerned about the loss of some residential properties in the city for these types of requests. And they did not approve what was then 188 townhomes. It's essentially the same development, but more buildings came all the way south to where the commercial area is. There it is. How about that? So this was the development that was proposed and rejected by the city council for the purpose of primarily the loss of the commercial. So the property development came back with 167 units and the 3 acres of commercial that was recently approved. And then in 2023, the city council did approve Timberland Partners' request to rezone the property in a comprehensive plan amendment. November 20, 2023, that was the first phase of the public hearing for this development. Also, we're going to touch on the traffic study that was presented and as part of the comprehensive plan review, and also with this proposed townhome development. As you can see with this particular layout, when this was originally proposed in 2021, there was also a private street connection that was laid out in this location. This driveway has been pulled up further in this direction and on both ends here. And of course, this is the commercial portion, and then this portion of the property is now proposed to be where the clubhouse would be located, and then these are still the same single-family lots as are proposed now. This is the layout that's proposed. It shows the private street that would come through here. It'd be a 32-foot wide street, which is consistent with any local street in the city. That's curb-to-curb pavement width. Recommendation of approval is that, if it were to be approved, is that there'd be no parking signs on this street, so there would not be further restriction on width. So it's otherwise a regular local street, such as further up in Kendall and the neighborhoods here. There'd be 2 driveway locations here that are serving the townhome development. Each of these units has garages. There's parking. There's a better detailed site plan here, I think, that shows parking areas that have driveway access within these private drives, and private drives that go into each of these buildings. There are no private drives, separate driveways that come out onto the private drive that's proposed, connecting the 2 roads here. There would be an outlot here for stormwater drainage, and there will also be stormwater drainage elsewhere on site, which is shown on a grading plan. This here is the preliminary plat. This, again, is the area site plan. This is intended to show proposed grading for the site, stormwater drainage. This outlot here, there'd be a storm drainage pond here, and then further to on the east side of this location here. The buildings are proposed to be approximately 28 feet in height. Building height is measured to the midpoint of the gable, not to the peak of the roof, so it's well within the allowable height of any single-family home, and also for this type of home. The building exterior materials are primarily brick and a fiber cement or other composite material, which is considered a grade A material. And so that does meet the requirements of buildings of this type, zoning ordinance requirements. This is a 12-unit building. This is another 12-unit building design, 11-unit building design. And then in the interior, there's some 16-unit buildings. This is the clubhouse building. There was a traffic study that I'll just briefly touch on. I'm not the expert in this, but I'll just kind of summarize. So the east-west drive will connect Buck Hill Road to Kendall Drive. There's a traffic study done May 23rd of 2024. The findings of the traffic study indicate that with this proposed development, that and the increase of area traffic that will come in and out of this property over in the future, let's say the next 20 years, it will still function as service level A to C, which is still an acceptable, a high or acceptable rating during the AM and PM hours. The anticipated daily traffic trips through this area would be about 2,600, 2,700, and that includes trips that are outside of the property that may be through the neighborhood. The Parks and Recreation and Natural Resources Committee meeting was held last night. The committee did recommend and want me to communicate to the Planning Commission that additional landscaping is encouraged that be included along the north and west sides of the plat boundaries along the single-family residential lots, which would be along this area of the property here and here. I should point out that the zoning ordinance does not require screening for between single-family residential lots. It's a recommendation that'll be coming from the Park and Rec Committee, but it's not a requirement of the zoning ordinance. And then I also wanted to touch on again that the Dakota County Plat Commission identified Kendall Avenue as potentially requiring, under their policy, restricting access to primarily no left turns out of Kendall Drive onto County Road 46. Traffic from the neighborhood would have to go through the private drive or turn right and do a U-turn at County Road 50. I should point out as well is that the intersection across the street from on Kent Trail is a similar road that comes out across, but this is a divided roadway or access in here, so it doesn't allow people to make left turns out of Kent Trail, and so it would be a similar design to that. The timing of such from the county is they're identifying it as a need. They have not identified it as something that needs to be done with this project. It's not in the county's 5-year project capital improvement plan. However, when plats come in, they do identify it as something that may happen in the future. But this development is not going to trigger the need to do so. It will depend on traffic warrants, amount of traffic coming through on 162nd Street. Traffic and warrants, unfortunately, also include traffic incidents, accidents, crashes that could happen in those areas. And the reason the county does this is because when you have multiple accesses that are close together and everybody making through left turns, right turns from different directions, the left turning movements on these county roads do become hazardous at times. And so that's why the county plans them and lays them out this way. I touched on the Plat Commission. So the community development staff does recommend that the Planning Commission consider the 12 stipulations outlined in the planning and engineering reports. There are cross-access easements over the private street that we required consistent with as approved by the City Council for similar to the Sundance Lakeville Addition, which is the commercial portion of the development. I'm going to bring this up to an area-wide view here, and then I think that there may be a couple members of the public like to have an overhead that I'll assist them with at that point in time.
All right, thank you. And this is a public hearing. There are quite a number of you that have signed up to speak to this agenda item. I would ask that you try to keep your comments as brief as possible, just to allow for everyone to have the opportunity to speak to this agenda item. I would also like to ask that you try to keep your comments as unique as possible. So we will try to address everyone. We'll take note of everyone. So if someone has already kind of made that comment, we would just like to ask that you try to keep that unique. And again, we'll cover all of those. So this is a public hearing, so anyone who would like to go first can come up and please state your name and your address for the record. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair and fellow commissioners. My name is Amy Erkenbrack. I live at the estate of 11255 162nd Street West, which again is not a vacant land west of Kendale Drive. And I want to express my concern with the proposed plans to develop the land east of Kendale Drive and north of County Road 46. My concern is closing off the ability to exit Kendale going south and making a left turn onto County Road 46. This is a public road, and the primary thoroughfare for residents in the neighborhood to take this way to go east to 46 and to access Highway 35. You're talking about over at least 200 homes or 200 vehicles, or even up to 400 vehicles if you average 2 per household. The proposed plans are to stop our ability to use this as an exit going left and to redirect vehicles to use the private road through the private property of this development, and we would lose our ability or our rights to have full access to this thoroughfare. Being that it is considered private property, the road therefore is a private road, and at any time they can dictate the usage. There will also be a swimming pool added to the southwest corner of the lot in which the residents of the 176 units will have to walk across the private road to get to and from the pool. If the private owner feels that there is a safety issue with the amount of vehicles going through there, with their residents and children going to and from the pool, who is to say that they won't block off the road and deny us access? Likewise, in the wintertime, it will be their responsibility to keep this drive-through plowed for our access. Who is to say they will be prompt and we will be able to get out early enough, or they will be able to get out early enough in the morning for those individuals who have to go to work or drop children off at school. We would be at their mercy and there would be nothing that we could do about it at that time. It would be a huge mistake to close off our public access to go east on County Road 46. If the county is concerned there's a safety issue for drivers to turn left, and I know that Mr. Dempsey had mentioned that that is a county situation and not necessarily part of this meeting per se, but it is still, I feel, encompassing to this meeting. I believe that there's an option that you can put a stoplight there. As far as it being too close as an argument to the other intersections to be able to do this, I would disagree in that and say that it's not too close. We are at the final stretch of County Road 46 before the road ends and connects with Highway 5. There would be no concern of flow of traffic because of the short distance. Likewise, drivers should be driving 45 miles per hour or less anyways and must stop at that County Road 46/Highway 5 intersection. On a daily basis, most drivers are going well over the speed limit and whizzing by on this road in both directions. With this being the case, the Lakeville Police Department typically has a patrol car parked on the median almost daily and has been doing so as far back as 2013, if not for longer. The need for vehicles to slow down there is a common occurrence and also a major worry. I have also been given permission to speak on behalf of Seth and Allison Thomas, who reside at 15829 DuPont Avenue South. They are not able to be here and wanted to express their apprehension of the use of the private road as a thoroughfare as well, specifically exiting right or going south onto Buck Hill Road. The placement of the proposed road in connection with Buck Hill Road is too close together. The difficulty of making this the main way out would be having to cross over 3 lanes of traffic to get into the left turn lane to go east on County Road 46. With over 200 to 400 vehicles, or with the new number Mr. Dempsey put up there, 2,665 average daily trips, including the proposed housing the 176 units, or if you have 1 to 2 vehicles per household, that could be up to 352 vehicles. The question would be is how would it be ideal for anyone to be able to safely navigate this way and also maintain a flow of traffic? The answer is that it's not ideal nor wanted, and this is not taking into consideration all the additional traffic we would have in the wintertime from the Buck Hill Ski Resort. The usage of this road is above what would be considered reasonable or usual for the amount of traffic there, and is a recipe for backups and accidents that could easily be avoided with more consideration in this planning process. I recommend pumping the brakes on the approval of this project until these concerns have been thoroughly thought through and that the correct and appropriate traffic, safety, and crime studies have been completed. I appreciate your time this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see. My name's Tara Weissar. I live at 15939 Kendale Circle, and I'm the one with the handout. Thank you, because I do not have a color printer. Perfect, thank you. Nancy. Okay, a lot of what I was going to talk about has already been talked about, so I'll try to skip over some of the duplication. I kind of wanted to give just a aerial view of both of the neighborhoods that will be using this private drive through Sundance, just so you can get a visual of how many houses are going to be affected. And these are all homeowners. They've invested in their real estate, and maybe they're like me, where they thought this was going to be their forever house. So we're all pretty passionate about our forever houses. So, 1983 West Buck Hill. So that would be this one. So it's outlined in purple. So this existed in 1983. Then in 2001, they put in my subdivision, Streeflin, and to benefit Buck Hill, the West Buck Hill subdivision, they punched through DuPont. And before, they would have to go this way and this way and this way. They couldn't get through. And they also maintained a tree line along our northern boundary, which is also an electric easement, which is convenient to put trees there. But nonetheless, that would lessen the impact on that. And so it improved their commute, because they get to punch through on DuPont, come down Kendall Circle, and head to 35. And we all kind of hate it because they blow through the stop sign constantly. So we're coming from this direction, we're going straight. They don't see many of us going straight, so they just roll right through the stop sign. And luckily, the city puts a speed trailer there. They put a squad car there every once in a while to re-educate them to stop at the stop sign. So that leads to my main concern with this private road, with us being forced to use the private road eventually, is that can the city tag and tow if somebody's parking illegally? Can the city put a speed trailer? Can they enforce the stop signs? I'm not sure what the easement is going to say, but I've never seen an easement that could bestow the power of the police to police a private road. And just to address a quick point that Mr. Dempsey made about Bolero, which is not really on this one, maybe it's on this one. This is the Bolero development, and they punched through this road that didn't exist before Bolero to benefit this subdivision. And of course, yes, they blocked their left-hand turn lane, but they don't care. They can get on County Road 5 anyway. But they punched it through, so now they can take a right and get onto 35. So I don't really think that restriction can compare to ours, because obviously we want to go that way, not that way, typically. Okay. So this, I think you guys have this in front of you, so I won't focus on it for too long. Focus. There we go. This was just a quick drawing to show you the different routes that people are going to take. And I do think to keep in mind, most people are not going to want to take 5 left turns to get to where they want to go. They're going to come down here and do a U-turn. They're not going to want to go through Sundance, which is what I'm going to get to next. And that kind of leads me into this picture. I, for one, do not want to, I understand it's 32 feet wide, which is the same as our street, although our subdivision, the right-of-way is 60 feet. So the dedicated city road is 60 feet, even though the physical road is 32 feet. And that pushes back our setbacks. So our houses are farther away from the public road. Here, you have a 32-foot driving surface, which I agree is sufficient, but we're, 12, 13, 15 feet from the front door. I don't want to drive through a subdivision or a townhouse situation with young children, and there's also 4 driveways or side streets that I'm assuming people will have to stop at a stop sign if they stop. So I guess my main point is I think we're back to other options that aren't any safer. And then a couple other points. Confusion to emergency services and delivery vehicles. So if you guys were to require them to make a city road, then we could have a sign that says 246, and it will direct emergency vehicles and delivery vehicles to where they need to go to exit the subdivision. And then somebody else brought up the city snowplow situation, but I know you guys all know, you look out the window to see if the city's come through yet, and then you see that they have, so you can go to work. But we won't have that luxury because we could get to that intersection to go through Sundance and it won't be plowed. So we'll have to take alternative routes. So to wrap it up, I'm just asking the city to work with the developer to do what they did in Streefland and West Buck Hill, make them dedicate a 60-foot right-of-way so that the living portion of the property is farther away from the road that we have to drive on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Madam Chair and Planning Commission members. My name is Chelsea Wen, and I live at 15956 Kendale Drive, and my property backs up to this land. My concerns with the developments are the following: volume of homes, the privacy that they will decrease, the increase in traffic that this development will create, as well as additional development details. I understand that we are on time frame and everything, but I think you need to hear that all of us sitting back here is concerned about things that we're going to talk about again. With the development, there's 176 units into a small area. You're talking about putting 350 to over 700 people into 25 buildings on 15.75 acres of land. That's an excessive amount of people in this small area. In 2020, I moved from owning a townhome in Burnsville because the demographics in the neighborhood changed drastically over a year due to the majority of the homes turning into rentals. This development is marketed as, quote, high-end rentals. However, the developer does not know what kind of people will be renting and what their mindsets are, knowing that they are just renting. We all have families in this neighborhood with children and our grandchildren, and I'm pretty sure our neighbors and myself can say that we don't want any sketchy people or any public offenders in our neighborhood around our children. Having a bunch of rentals would probably do this. So the seriousness of how many people will be renting, as well as the amount of visitors these renters will have, is very concerning. Again, the developer's marketing these rentals as high-income rentals. This question's for the developer, how many of your current developments are funded through the HUD Affordable Housing Funds, or in other words, residential words, how many of your developments are getting assistance from the government to pay for its renters' rent? What's to say this development doesn't turn into low-income housing like other developments?
Ma'am, that was already stated that they're not getting any funds.
Okay. My solution for this is to decrease the number of units. Many of your current developments, Sundance, Stillwater, Woodbury, Salina, and Omaha, all have 8 to 10 units, buildings, or create rental single-family homes for the entire area. Maybe it will look like it's a single-family neighborhood. Privacy. Right now, the wooded acreage currently provides different species habitating there, as well as sound buffer for the noise of 35W and Buck Hill. I moved here away from rentals to build a family in a single-family neighborhood. Removing the woods as well as creating the development will only increase the sound from Highway 35 and Buck Hill, as well as create more noise with all the new traffic that the units and medical buildings will be bringing. Many of these rental townhomes, I understand, are only going to be 28 feet high. However, when you look at the topography of the graph up on the Burnsville side, they're going to be towering over these single-family homes. I don't want to see what renters are doing. There's no screening between the current houses and the proposed development, which I understand. The only screening is between the rental townhomes and the rental single-family homes on the property. I would like to see natural dense screening increased between the owned single-families homes of Burnsville and Lakeville, as well as the rental single-family homes like O'Reilly's or the RS apartments. I also propose that the developer put a privacy fence along the entire property line of the development for Lakeville and Burnsville residents. Another suggestion is that up here in the Burnsville area, I don't know, can we go to the design of it here? Another suggestion is to make these houses more so single-family homes, because as of right now, these Burnsville houses are 30 feet from their backyard. Their front doors are 30 feet from their backyards. That's like from me to that TV up there. Make these single-family homes and have their backyards back up to it up here, and provide these families who have lived here since the 1970s and more space, and so that they don't have to tower, they don't have to be that close to these people.
I'm sorry. Your generalizations have actually been pretty upsetting, and I know that you're frustrated. I can hear that. But I don't appreciate that you're generalizing people who rent as in a bucket of sketchy people and those people. So again, I understand you're frustrated, but that's not a broad generalization.
Okay,
People rent. A lot of people rent. You can find the same type of people in single-family homes. So I don't really want.
All I said was to make these houses rental single families.
It's all of the comments that you've made thus far have been, to me, quite upsetting, because you're categorizing a group of people who rent. I understand, but that doesn't mean that those people are going to come.
Okay, can I continue, please? Thank you.
Order. No, I think we've heard enough. I think you've went through all of your points, and we can allow someone else to speak.
I have not. I still have more to talk about.
Okay, well, you have 2 minutes, and we'll move to someone else.
The traffic, again, you're telling 2,665 trips. That's just this development, not the trips of everybody else. I do also want to say that I asked for reports of traffic incidences, that if you were to create this turn into a 3/4 turn, there have been 0 accidents at that turn, at this intersection right here, and a total of 3 accidents reported since 2016. 3 accidents in 8 years, that's 1 accident every 2.6 years. Again, one thing I do want to mention is that in the traffic study, the current southbound forecast of Buck Hill Road is quoted to be at 95 percentile during peak period. From here to here, you're telling me that there's 95%. How are you going to put all of these homes, all these cars on this road? The other thing is, a suggestion is to have the developer buy this vacant land by Venstar LLC, and have the entrance and exit come out further down this road, so that you don't have a bottleneck right here. Sidewalks, I like the idea of the sidewalks. However, it's always been on the diagram that the sidewalks would come up to the ending of the PowerPoint of this development right here. I don't see them on the diagrams. It's been talked about. So I would say if you're going to put sidewalks in, the developer should be putting those sidewalks in, maintaining those, and extending them up to the top of the Burnsville city limits, which is up here towards the park.
Okay. Thank you.
Last but not least, two things. The finding of facts, I also want to point out that I believe that they do not follow the 2040 comprehensive plan for Lakeville. In the comprehensive plan, it states that District 1, which is what we're talking about, will have, quote, opportunities for targeting development of highly dense city residential dwellings, and mixed use will be considered within the transit node within half a mile of the existing Metro Transit Park and Ride facility. The proposed development is 1.5 miles from the Metro Transit Park and Ride facility on Kendrick Avenue. It does not meet that comprehensive plan of being within that half mile. Last but not least, this goes to the surveyors on July 30th at 8:30, approximately 8:30. There was a surveyor from your team on my land. I was not notified, and I understand that you need to survey the land within a few feet of it. I do not appreciate the surveyor coming all the way up to my garage door, my front door, through my front landscaping, and down the west and right sides of my house, which I have on video. 30 plus feet is what I noticed. You shouldn't need to come into my yard to survey. Why was I not notified about this survey prior to this happening? I have a family and a dog that frequently use our yard. I do not appreciate having some random person walking through my private yard. And if you need to be on my property in the future, please notify me. Otherwise, I will be calling the police. Thank you.
Call for any others.
Good evening. My name is Matthew West. I live on 1155th Street West. I only have a couple points. One is I want to be able to turn left because it's safety for me. Going down 155th Street West goes down a really big hill, and there's always accidents anytime it's icy. So that's my back way. And number two, the increase of people driving through the neighborhood is going to happen regardless of who lives there. But that many homes and that many people in a concentrated area, I think is going to increase it disproportionately. And I think that's all I have.
Thank you.
I have one question. I don't know where I get a response. Is there a reason why it connects to Kendall or whatever that road is?
We'll touch on those when the public hearing is closed.
Or could it just end there and then nothing changes with turning left or anything?
We'll answer that when the public hearing closes.
Oh, okay, awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So we to turn that back on. I'm Emily Taylor, and I'm at 15946 Kendall Circle. As you hear from many of us back here, I just wanted to point out a couple things on the diagram. When they talked about the medical offices, I am in healthcare, and they're like, oh, it's 8 to 5 on this road. We're going to be sharing this private road with medical offices. We don't just work 8 to 5. Okay, like we are going to be competing with medical offices, the people coming to work every day before 8, after 5. That private road is going to be very congested. And I'd also like to ask, like, what is the plan for the private road? Are they going to put speed bumps in there to keep people from flying through? What's the plan with that? I don't know what their plan is, but I do have to say that just as someone who works in healthcare, that area is going to get busy 2 medical offices, it's going to be busy before 8, it's going to be busy after 5. And we purposely did move from Burnsville to our home in Lakeville. We made a choice. We didn't even move 7 miles because of how congested and difficult it was to get on the freeway from our old home. So taking away that ability for us to make that left out of there is big. We also chose a daycare 1.8 miles from our home, down 46, because I do work in healthcare and I work by Southdale to get on the freeway. My husband, we use the freeway every day to get back and forth, and we chose a daycare that was easy access from our home. And I can't imagine the safety issues with also having to go to a light and try to make a U-turn with other people trying to turn right onto 46 from there. It is just kind of a logistical nightmare, and you think about the safety reasons. So I just also want to, like I said, just point out from the healthcare aspect, those 2 medical buildings, I understand are approved. This land is eventually going to be developed. We get that. We just think that there should be an overall consideration for people that are already residing there, as well with like the new neighbors that are going to be coming. Because you're right, like these people are going to have kids themselves. There should be things to consider about that road. And for those of us living there. Also, trying to funnel us to go through the private road to Buck Hill Road and then having to go across the traffic to take a left. I don't know if any of you guys ski or go in and out of there. I don't. But the road backs up significantly when Buck Hill is open. There's already problems with accidents kind of on that road. It also backs up significantly. I don't know if any of you are aware, but Buck Hill does like car nights where people come and show off all of their cars. We already have problems with people, their little cars, mob musclers, like zipping through our neighborhood, because right where we sit, we overlook that stop sign kind of to DuPont. And we already just sit there and we just watch people fly through those stop signs all day long. So I think if you open up that private road access, you're just opening up our neighborhood as well to just more and more people randomly coming through. So I just think there's a couple ideas I think that can work for everyone involved. Like someone said, can it just stop here and we can kind of keep that and their neighborhood stops and that kind of closes. I think that would also be safer for their neighborhood as well. It closes them off to all this extra traffic using their neighborhood as a place to drive through to get to work, a place to drive through to zip to Buck Hill, just more shortcuts. I think there just needs to be some overall consideration for the ability for us to take a left and for something that's going to work for the people that are going to be residing in these homes. It just really has to be more thought put into that traffic specifically. I think all I had really, just from a healthcare point of view, it already, and for those of us that made active choices knowing we bought in this neighborhood, we didn't move far. And like you're taking away one of the very big perks of why we chose to like reside in this neighborhood, and that's our access to the freeway. Because it's a huge pull for us. I mean, when I had my daughter like 2 years ago, my husband was transferred and he has no say where he gets transferred, and he had to drive to Elk River every day. Like an extra like 15 minutes just trying to get back onto 35 and doing a loop could be detrimental really to our morning commutes. So thank you.
Thank you.
Sam Haas, 15729 Bryant Avenue Court. Good evening, Madam Chair, fellow commission members. Is there somewhere I can plug my laptop in for my slide presentation? Okay.
No.
Well, this will get a little tricky then. Say again? I like that. That's a good solution right there. We'll aim for that. Okay, here we go.
How many slides do you have? Did that say 125?
More or less. I will go through them quickly because a lot of them are pictures. The big thing I wanted to do this for you all here is, this. I got a lot of zoom-ins on the details here, and I found some interesting details throughout the property. So I will I will be as brief as possible, try to beat Mr. Dempsey, but I do have some really interesting details I'd like to share with you all. Thank you. I am also here on behalf of some neighbors that could not make it. I can leave a copy of their names and addresses if that would be helpful. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 families here, or if you'd like me to read them off, I can do that. Okay, very well. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm speaking on behalf of my family and the following members I mentioned who could not make it tonight. I am a neighbor to the north. I'm here tonight with my family and other members of our neighborhood, whom I thank for taking time from their schedules to be here with me tonight to evaluate and discuss these proposed preliminary plats. I will not be talking about, no traffic here in my presentation. And I'll go quickly over some values that the lot currently has. Natural rainwater infiltration area, habitat for wildlife, a large variety of wildlife that my boys love seeing, a habitat for insects, including honeybees, buffer from light and noise pollution. So it seems like this development would possibly take away from some of those points, but then again add in other ways. On the plus side, there is no on-street parking permitted. As they claim, that they're a well-established company with good planning policies and experience, which, judging by their website and their previous projects, I do agree. And there might be potential employment opportunities for neighborhood teenagers, too. So I'm looking forward to getting my boys who are 8 and under some work here in the near future. Well, far future here, I hope. All right. Let's get started. So first off is the building setbacks. Ooh, that's still not going to help. Maybe the camera has a zoom feature that someone behind a screen can use. Well, all these documents are available online, so I would encourage the commission to please take a really close look at here as I walk along here. I'm going to move the mic just a hair and see if I can see it from the glare here. Okay, first off, for these easements, it is a 30-foot building setback, and you'll notice that on the west side, you've got the single-family homes, and on on the north side, you'll see the grading walls here. And one thing to note is it is a 30-foot building setback from the rear of these properties here. And also the buildings are right at around, I think we got another picture from an older view, 32 feet. So they're right hugging that setback. There is also get back to here, a planned, come on brain, just had our 4th kid, so lost a little sleep, but I'll hang in there. A retaining wall due to the dimensions of the hill there from these houses here. And I will mention this is my house right there, so it will come up very soon. All right, here is the current neighbor view for all of us here. All right, we have 909 158th Street West. You will notice, if it shows well, there is an orange sign in the back. So that would be where the wall of the building is, or a window, a walkout deck, and all that. So, and then Wyatt's property is right on his fence is right on his property line there. And so we'll go this way. Here's some more views. I'm just going to quickly go through them. I apologize for them not being very clear with this current setup we have, but I can provide you a copy of this digitally for your review. All right, this is the rear from those signs again that you saw, those orange signs behind his house. So this would be, someone's window or maybe top level, depending on how the buildings line up here. We will move on to the next door neighbor. Pictures provided by them. Same thing. We're all in the same lineup, so I'm kind of go through these, but please do take note. The closeness to my neighbor's houses, because this would be a window. Again, moving down the block. I got my little buddy back there helping me out, hold up a sign there. He's a good helper. But same thing with on that berm in the back there. And this is the view from the back of that sign, the back of that sign up there. This, I will reference this again later on in the presentation. This is the berm. When we look at the topology diagrams, this will be the berm I'm referencing. And you'll notice that power pole for a 69 kV power feed to the neighborhood substation that will also come up during this presentation. There's just another, so we're looking straight on, we turn our head a bit to the right, there it is, and then the hill tapers off into what's a sand pit. So they stripped out the topsoil there. I'll keep going though, I don't want to use up too much time here as I'm speaking on behalf of only a few other neighbors. We can see house 909 there. The tree right here is an example of where that 32-foot mark from these neighbors' property back to that tree. That's an example of the space there. And so this would all be the 12-building apartment building. Alrighty, here's a site I see a lot. This is the back view of 15729 Bryant Avenue Court. You can see that orange sign again. Stay focused, baby. There we go. Another view of the power lines there. Please notice the height of those power lines. Moving on as I'm turning. So this is a view from my either bedroom or kitchen, I should say dining room sliding door. We tore the deck down, we're remodeling, so please bear with us on some of the views. There's my neighbors on the, at least to me, the left portion of the screen, my neighbor's fence, you'll notice that. And take note of those orange signs. We're about to, this is a downstairs bedroom, 3 bedrooms on the back there facing that. Another one of the power pole. Okay, so this is us taking a picture behind the sign at the 32-foot view. So looking right into the back of our house there, a single-family home, built in 1987. Yep, tore that deck down, and now we're patching her up, and it'll be a nice wraparound in the future. So there's my neighbor's fence. You'll kind of see the slopes here. There's a lot of hills and a kind of rolling grade here. That'll come up later. Another picture of my house. What the deal? Okay, don't tell my wife I'm showing pictures of our house, please. This is me standing at the rear of my property and looking at that sign 32 feet away. I mean, it's a 2D image, so you're not going to get much out of it, but we'll keep going here. Moving on, there's that power pole again. It's there. It's the power company. You see those trees to the left of it. So Great River Energy comes by and trims those a couple times, or I should say every couple of years. I think it was like 2 to 5 years they trim those back. And you'll notice that is right around that 30-foot mark. All right, the last neighbor on the block. Here we're wrapping it up. Please notice that was the corner fence. And then we're going to watch that slope as it slopes down. So there's the view with there's the orange sign. I should point these out. Sorry, please stop me if you guys need some clarification or you're not tracking with me. I've been staring at these for a couple weeks now. Alrighty, there. We're gonna move on. More signs there. And you see that tree line has been there due to GRE cutting the trees back from the power lines. And so this is a sloped, very sloped backyard. This is a view from their deck, actually. So you'll see the pool deck down there. And we're almost, this tree, I couldn't fit a sign back there, so I just marked it on the slide. That is 4 feet front of, so 4 feet behind there would be that 32-foot mark. Moving on, more from the deck. Very nice. Is there something there I was going to talk about? Nah. Okay, we're back to the slope. Definitely notice that slope coming down here. That will come up soon. And the slope continues to the back corner of their property. All right, this is again, what we've seen this before. This is from standing behind those signs we just saw. All righty. So what will this view change to? You all kind of got a good feel, hopefully, for what the neighbors have been seeing for the past quite a while, couple decades or more. And so what will we be looking at in the future? Not 100% sure. I tried to piece it together as best I could. Natural screening. So this is a question I had. With the layout of the natural screening, and I did not bring my cheat sheet, so I'm doing this from memory. We got firs, we got spruce, we got elm, some more spruce here. So definitely a good amount of screening, natural screening. So the, sorry for the, this is why I wanted it on the big screen, so it would, pop more so we could talk about this, but please encourage you guys to review at home the details here, or zoom in if you guys have the ability on the other info. So the dotted line is the end of our property here, our neighbors on the north. Now we do have a drainage and utility easement within this area, and it is 10-foot drainage and utility easement for a 69 kV line. So with what the power company's been doing with trimming back trees, just in talking to them, it seems that it's not going to work out. And I asked them, I said, hey, did the folks at Timberland contact you for vegetation management? And they said they had not had a call. When they mentioned it to me, that was Anson Belcart I was talking to. I said, okay. Well, I just kind of ran it by him and talked to him. And then I got to talk to Michelle McDonald. And she had mentioned that 10 feet is not enough setback for a 69 kV line. And understandably, because you saw how high those poles were and the amount of power they carry to the substation for our neighborhood, a lot of the power is below ground. So that's what's feeding the neighborhood there. So I wasn't, and there could be a way to do it, but just with these tree lineup, and I'm sure that they mention, the developer mentions this, it's obviously, it's their prerogative. They can swap things out and change things along, is what they mentioned in their documentation. So it's understandable, but.
I'm sorry, just for clarification, are you saying your concern is the screening there and the existing power lines? Is that?
Yes, it would be the screening and its proximity right under the power lines. It seems like they'd get cut or removed, which has happened to neighbors. The power company said, hey, we'll give you some money and take your pine tree out. So, okay, let's see here. The apartment building heights is another question I had. So we're looking here, these are great info here. So we got 110 feet. We've got our retaining wall, and these points, okay. Yeah, we can work through this here. Let me turn so I'm staring at it. All right, so these points indicate, rims. The big blowout of this gives the key, gives the legends, and so I'm an IT guy. I don't do any of this stuff, but I like to dig in. So we're talking about different points there for where that point there is what the height is. So I'm guessing this is above sea level. So we'll go with that. So we got 1,010 feet, and then up to the top here, we see the topology lines. So what we're looking at is, let's find a good one. There's one up here that says 118. I'd have you guys help me find it, but you can't see it. There you go, 116, 118. So the grading there. So we're looking, and now granted, so over here, so I'm not pointing into space off the camera. Over here are those single-family homes. Over here are the rental apartment buildings. And so we've got this retaining wall because as I saw that berm that drops down. So this retaining wall looks to be about, I'd say 6 to 8 feet high. And then it kind of slopes over into the neighbors there with the flow. So you see the flow there. Similar thing here. We're not going to beat around the bush too much here. The big kicker here is for my neighbors to the east of me there, the Samuelsons. So this pitches all the way down, and these arrows, this is on the drainage document provided by the developer. The drainage is flowing down, 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 and it looks like they have a reverse retaining wall, so this would actually build up. I'm no expert, so we'll leave that to ask that question for them. Then it does go down, near the back of their property. So that might not be ideal. Sure.
Okay, just to clarify again,
Oh, yeah, yep. I'm going to take a drink too.
that concern was about the water flow.
Yes, the water flow to my neighbor's backyard, because they
Okay.
couldn't make it here. I have their signature that I could speak on their behalf about that. Let me take a quick drink.
All right, and then just to check, is there anyone wishing to speak after? Okay, just to,
Vinny will be quick.
because we want to get through all, we want to
Quicker than me.
address all of the questions
Oh,
too.
definitely. And I do have a bit of a cheat sheet too. My printer screwed up, so I got some hand copies I'll hand out too with some big points I'd like us to dive into. Yes. Okay, whenever you're ready. Okay, thank you. Okay, here's one okay. So we'll see here, there's actually two different types of 12 unit apartments. There's the 12A type and the 12B type. And so we've got a 12A, 12B, 12A. And again, this is the corner of that lot, the northeast corner, and then everything heads down that way to the single family homes. So there is a discrepancy I would like the developer to address here for all of us. And so I zoomed in because the sheets were so big, and this is not doing any justice. I can walk around with this laptop too. But this says 12-unit building, 12B, and in the corner here, it's type A. And that kind of continues on throughout the building identifiers. Sometimes it shows two different buildings identified as, I believe it was type A. We'll probably run into it here. But that was something since we're deciding on this and putting this in, it would be good to really solidify what's going in there, what are we seeing across the back there for the neighborhood? What's the neighborhood going to look like? So, I mean, it's just a little thing. It's easy. It's an easy, typo, Monday thing. So we'll keep going here. Alrighty, I zoomed in here. So this is labeled as a 12-unit building, 12A. So this is the layout here. And I'm going to just zoom in just to make sure. And boy, did this throw me for a loop. Man, I feel stupid. I almost told you guys that this was a 130-foot building, but then I put this slide together and I'm like, yeah, no, that's going to be like 30 feet high on the bottom of the trusses, according to this. Now, I could be wrong. I could be reading this really wrong, so hopefully we will get some correction on that. So the height of the buildings is a question that I have for those apartments. The type and the height there. My house is a 2-story, and I believe it's about 28 to 30 feet to the gable, to the top there. Here's just a side view. So this is called the rear view, although in reality, there's front doors all around these. So it all looks the same. But so this is what I could be potentially looking at to the south of me in the morning, sitting on my new deck. But we see that that retaining wall, by estimates, was 6 to 8 feet high. We'll call it 8. And so we're seeing maybe, the first portion of that bottom level. So if it's a, 8-foot high ceilings, we'll say it's half of that. So potentially when we peek over that hill, if there is no screening, now that's the thing I'd like to look into is screening, one of the issues. Then, we'd just be seeing about, looks like 4 apartments worth, but I can't remember from the zoom in. They got a really nice side slice too of how the apartments are laid out, which is really cool to look at. Same thing with the, hold on. Okay, yeah, that's 12A, and that's got this is a 2.5 story. You'll notice they got the 2 lofts there. Or is it 4 lofts? I think they're split, yeah. There's 2 on the front, 2 on the back. And then we've got a type A. So this is one of those things, it'll easily get cleared up. But these do look shorter. These are just like, I don't know what you call them, two stories. I don't think that's 2.5. I'm not a building guy. But again, we zoom in and we see, yeah, it's about, looks like 19 feet there, plus maybe another 8 to 12 to the gable. So it's just, it'd be helpful to know how high that is going up over the back with the view I'm used to currently. What, am I going to be staring at all black roofing? Yes. All right, I'll take a break here if there's any questions or you need me to go back. Not hearing any? Groovy. Here's a view of that type A building, the 3D exterior. So you notice it is a little short. It looks like they're shorter and longer. And I can't remember where I'm not really sure where the placement is on the overhead view. All righty, other views. So some of you on the Planning Commission, right, might have been around and remember this one. This is Eris Apartments, right, just south of the Fleet Farm in Lakeville. One thing I thought was really cool about Eris Apartments is the developer provided this little cutaway there, because there are single-family homes to the east of the building, this apartment complex, and apartments there. And so I would imagine, well, I don't imagine, I read some of the public comments and they were entertaining as usual. But, it was interesting to see this view. And this was really helpful, I'm sure, for those neighbors to get a feel for how their view is going to change, just due to that all being kind of like what we have now, just entirely, if I remember right, just an entirely vacant wooded lot. So we will zoom in. I don't know how much it's going to help. They started about approximately the property line, and I have my notes here. I did the math. There we go.
Okay, so just.
Oh, yes,
sorry.
yes.
So just the question is something like this able to be provided?
I'll skip past it. You got it.
Okay,
I
so
like
yeah,
it.
if we could.
I do want to mention the setback, though. Looks like it's about from the rear of the property line to this first building, looks like about 80 feet. Of course, that's an underground parking garage, and it doesn't look like it's in line of sight. This, the big thing you're going to be worried about, that looks like 108 feet of a setback from the rear of the property line.
Yeah,
that
but
is
that's
something I would like to bring up.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, moving on. So where in Lakeville do we have single-family homes next to apartment buildings? So I did a quick search, and here's Eris again, our single-family there, and the Eris apartment stacks there. Nice room for cover. So that's going to be a theme. I'll skip through these, Madam Chair, if that's all right with you. We'll go quickly because you guys get the point here. Same thing, Lakeville Point, single-family homes here, big difference. Multifamily screening between two multifamily homes. Now, granted, these aren't as dense as the 12. I believe these were 4 like condos, duplexes. So screening between multifamily homes. Single-family and 8-unit multifamily condos. So we got our single-family here, 8 units there, some nice screening along there. Townhomes and single-family. Let me take a look here. I don't think I have anything more to say on that. Daycare in a single-family. I just want to pause here. The property was zoned for commercial previously, so there's a nice amount of distance here. Well, I should say there's a nice amount of screening. Coming up, there's another daycare with a really nice amount of distance between the building and the property line. Oh, I would have loved that. That would have been so cool to have a daycare in that area, but we're moving on. Lakeville Liquors and single-family homes. Good distance between buildings there. Lots of good screening. Again, a commercial example. Another commercial example, or no, not commercial, I'd say religious, nonprofit there. Okay, more on the setbacks.
Can we skip? I've got the setbacks. We'll touch on that.
Sorry. Oh.
Yep.
Okay, there was
setbacks and screening.
Yep. I did want to add an extra to the setbacks, though. It's really neat, if I may. Thank you. Setbacks are 30 feet for single family, although we see some neighbors over here got a really nice pushback from the rear of their property line to the building. So there's that. I noticed an interesting, the setback between this single family, the end of their property, and their own, the company's own apartment buildings is actually more than what's proposed for my neighbors. We got, if you can't see it, so I'll read it off to you, 35.41 feet. Okay, what's the next one here? Okay, quick blank page, quick side tangent. Pet policy for Sundance, Sundance Woodbury example here from their website. So we got 2 cats, maximum allowed, and maximum allowed 2 dogs, with, of course, fees. And I like that they have poop prints. They're a poop prints community, so that means there shouldn't be doo-doo in their yard. Although with them being so close to me, we'll see how that goes. I'm not gonna, say that it's gonna be bad, but I do notice that a maximum of 2 dogs, and then we got a 12-unit building. Now, no, that's a stretch, but it is possible, unless there's a Lakeville ordinance about how many, dog to apartment ratio. I don't know. I didn't have time to look that up, but there's the potential for, 24 dogs in a building. I know, we're gonna smirk, say, come on, Sam, give me a break. But there's a potential for more than 1 or 2 dogs, where if it was a single-family home, there probably would not be in the 10s to 20s of dogs in that area, is what I'm getting at there. We'll move on. The transmission lines. Oh, we just got some pictures here. So here's that clearing from the northeastmost point of this property. See the transmissions line and the clearing that the power company's been doing. So we're hitting that 32 foot mark there. Another view from my power pole, I think, and this is a neighbor's pine tree that's had to get lopped off multiple times. Utility easements. One thing I did notice here, at least according to this diagram, is, so there's the utility pole behind this house, and then it kind of bumps down. There's the next utility pole, 2 lots over, and it's actually, so the lines coming off that pole, as we saw in the previous picture, they point off the side. The lines for that pole are actually outside of that easement, and it kind of does skew. My neighbor on the corner, he's lined up, but then the poles definitely skew as you go down about, I'm going to butcher this, maybe half mile or 3/4 of a mile to the substation there on corner of County Road 5. Another existing utility pole, which is now outside of, you see that dotted line, I believe. If we go back, that's referring to the drainage and utility easement. So now we've got poles and overhead lines heading outside of the existing drainage and utility easement. I just want to bring this up. Obviously, it doesn't really affect me as far as I know, but is this going to be a problem for the developer in the future, especially with that so small of an easement already for these large, high-powered lines? And I don't know the answer, but hopefully we can get in touch with Great River Energy and really kind of figure out what's going on here, why that looks like it's drifting out of the drainage and utility easement, as well as something that's probably going to come up in the future. When I was talking to Anson, he had mentioned that he's got a big project. He's doing lines all the way from Pilot Knob, moving up into Apple Valley and into Burnsville, but they're replacing 69 kV lines with 115 kV lines. And so a big project, need lots of equipment and gear, lots of room to work, in that area. And so when we've got a berm that drops off along here, and we got neighbors there, and if we have screening there in the way, that might prove to be a very messy feat in the future. Hopefully I've been clear on that, just construction in general. Great, thank you. Fire safety.
Okay, I'm sorry. How many more points, and can we go through them in a quicker fashion, just so we can document the concerns and then we can address them?
I understand. I apologize. I've really put a lot into this, as you can tell. Yep, we'll knock it out here. So talk to the 2 local fire stations near my house. Hey, well, no, I actually talked just to the Burnsville side. My big problem was how do you fight a fire this close to my house when you've got, 4-foot sidewalk? It's about, I don't know, 10 to 12 feet. Is that going to be too tight? And talking to the fire marshal for Burnsville at Station 1, yeah, he kind of sighed, and he didn't give, he said he'd have to look in it, and he hadn't heard about this development yet. So that'd be one thing I'd like, is the fire marshal's review on this development. So proposals, right? What can we do to really make this jive well with the existing neighborhood? You'll see the berm here has a nice little taper, and it's got that a good coverage there. So it is outside of the existing narrow easement for the power utility lines that follow the top half of the property and kind of head down. That's one thing. We look at Sundance Woodbury, and we see a very nice open lawn and playground here, and then a dog park. So probably not out of the realm of possibilities. We also have Sundance Omaha with some nice green spaces there too. So I kind of picture that as being a nice buffer area between the those higher density apartment buildings and the single family homes, which we kind of already touched on earlier, so I won't beat on that too much. And if there's any other possibility to decrease that distance between the end of the property line and the existing building, and the start of the building, to be able to make that screening happen and give us some more space, so we don't have our neighbors right at our kitchen table. I mean, they will be, obviously, because it's good to meet your neighbors and have them over, but every night's a little much, huh? I'll hand out my bullet points there. And I got one, oh yeah, there we go. One more tidbit. So this was included, probably around when we were talking about this back in 2021, and from the city of Burnsville. And just going through, the plan for that, the amendment, when we were talking about amending the zoning from commercial to the multifamily, multi-purpose, residential here. I got a point right there, and I'll read it out loud here. They're talking about the lift stations was one of the big points in here, utilities. I'll say here, it's this is from the city planner. It is also suggested that landscape screening be provided for areas where attached townhomes and higher residential density and/or commercial uses are proposed to adjacent to the existing single-family developed properties in the city of Burnsville. So on behalf of Burnsville, I offer that request a second time to the Planning Commission, but hopefully you all have kind of my multitude of points, and if there's options for a park, for more distance, either with condos or even single-family homes, continue that on in that. I think I'm going to blank on what multi-M1 is, the zoning now, but single-family homes would be, I think, a great fit for that section of the neighborhood, and what already kind of meshes well with what we have, or what you all have here in Lakeville. So, any questions for me?
No, not at this time.
Okay. I'll get copies of these for you all, but I would like to pass them around so you can see my neighbors that couldn't make it tonight. Thank you. Thanks.
Evening. I'm one of the older people in the neighborhood. I live 901 West 158th Street. The three buildings that you got on the line right behind me, 30 feet away, Sam was talking about that. In the beginning, in this neighborhood, I lived in Sunny Acres Mobile Home Park for 10 years, 77 to 87. From that point on, my forever home. Been there 30-some years. All the land behind me, I've taken care of. There's no trees, no nothing. All these years, I've taken care of that land. Now they want to approach, come 10 feet underneath them power lines, take a measurement 30-some feet out, put the back of a building there. If you have dogs, 2 dogs, and they bark at each other, they're only 30 feet away. Going to have neighbors like that. In the beginning, behind that development, it was supposed to be houses behind us, cul-de-sac, townhouses on the other side. That's how that development was back in 1987. Things changed. We went commercial. Watch that stake get pulled up from here to moving over there. Now all of a sudden they're going to build all these buildings. I've been through a couple of storms, had my house wrecked. There was a gal here that was talking about riffraff, new neighbors coming in, offended somebody up here. Well, I've got the mobile home park. I live there. Them people in the mobile home park, they're not adults coming through my yard. Those are kids. Them kids this spring were throwing rocks at my house. So now I got damage. Not enough damage to get a deductible, but I have to live with that. So when they talk about cutting through, it's not the adults, it's the kids coming through. That's a problem. The poles, if on County Road 5, all them poles went down in a storm. Them poles are high enough now, well, if they went down, they would fall against the buildings. It's too close to us. A bermer, yeah, that's great, but you gotta slide it back. I mean, I don't want my neighbor to be able to spit and hit me from his deck. Just a little bit of crowd, little space. That's all we're asking for. The streets, I won't even go back and waste your time with that. I don't want to have to take and go around to make a left-hand turn. That's a simple thing. I think that they could move things back. If they have to eliminate a couple of buildings to make that space, make that space. Don't jam us. Everybody's going to be coming out of that neighborhood trying to make a turn, a left-hand turn. And you'll already say, that might not be for 5 years of that, but it'll happen. Sooner or later, it'll happen. They'll make that choice. We've got stop sign in the neighborhood that we all voted down. We didn't want it. We got it. It's just a matter of time how things change. I don't want to see too much of a change. I enjoy my back area. I've taken care of this area for years and years. These people come in on my land, tag my trees on my property that they're going to cut down. Bullies. They're not even talking to us to get things done right, so hopefully talking to you guys, that'll help. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Still open. I noticed I forgot 3 points.
Can we do that? Sorry, they're telling
Oh, I
me.
only get one time to speak? Oh, I blew it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Well, thank you. I appreciate you.
thank you.
Yep.
5 Kennard Court, Lakeville. And my property, one
Yeah,
part of my, one area,
Can you tell me your name one more time?
it's Dallas, Malm, M-A-L-M. One part of my property faces Kendall and DuPont, which we've been talking about all night. And since they punched through DuPont, all the property from Burnsville comes down DuPont and swings through Kendall to make a left to get to the interstate. So it's busy there all the time. I can sit in my house drinking coffee and we watch the cars coming down the road and we say, you think that one will stop? No. That one will stop? No. You know, you might get one that stops every now and then. A few will slow down, the majority just zoom through. And those of us that live in the neighborhood and coming up Kendall, we don't have a stop sign, but we better stop because we're going to get hit if we don't. So from that point of view, if we could get a squad in there every now and then, just a presence, that would probably help. If they see it, they'll start slowing down. So we've talked enough about that. I guess my question is on this, going to Kendall and stopping us from being able to make a left-hand turn to go to Apple Valley, the interstate or whatever. Who makes that decision? Is that you guys? Is that?
We'll touch on that. That's the county. We don't have any control over that.
I mean, that's.
Did I say that right? Yeah.
Oh, okay. I just want clarification. I didn't know if that was you guys did it or the developer, but I mean, it's
No.
just stupid.
It's a county road.
So okay, well, who's going to talk to them about our concerns we had here tonight then?
We'll go through all these and kind of get answers to all the questions when the public hearing closes. So we'll touch on it because obviously everyone is concerned about the left-hand turn, so we'll.
Okay. Well, said that they set up the thing to count the traffic for one day. Tell you much, you know, it doesn't sound to me like the due diligence was very good when it came to a period. So I'll let you pass that on to whoever. I only have one other thing. Maybe I just didn't hear it. Single family home? What's a two-family home? I thought your handout there, one of those sheets thought it said single family home and two-family home. So I apologize if I'm mistaken.
Well, yeah, we can cover it. Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Teresa. I live at 15713 Bryant Avenue Court. I guess I'm speaking for some people who were hoping to get everything in, and I understand that there's just not a lot of time for that. First, I just want to thank you all for your time because I get it. It's a lot. We're heated. Nobody wants to deal with this. However, I guess just a couple of concerns that I just wanted to make sure gets across is that I know that we're moving more towards electric vehicles and renewable energy and all of that stuff, which I find amazing. I just had a question for the developers to see if they do have any sort of fire protection plan and or if they have any sort of electric vehicle plugins that they were planning on putting in there. I apologize, I didn't do my homework quite as well as some of these other wonderful people who have come up here. But that was just a question I was hoping that we could perhaps get addressed. And then the only other thing is that I think, especially because we have so many concerns, it would be really nice if we can maybe pause this development process and maybe just rethink how things are going. I know that there were, like I said, quite a few concerns brought up. We just want to make sure that everybody's happy and healthy and that our children are being cared for and that that everybody can have a space in this wonderful community is really what it is. You know, I've heard green spaces talked about, and as somebody who, as I mentioned, kind of with renewable energy, I'm definitely really big on green spaces. So if there could be any way that we could perhaps add more to that or something like that, and I understand that that's not all your decisions to make, but as a member of the community, we would like to see that in general. So I just want to ask, you know, if this was your house, if you were 30 feet away from this giant building with brand new fern tree put in, that yes, someday will be huge if the power lines allow it, I guess. But until that point, is this something you would want to look at? Is the dog something you want to hear barking? I understand we all have to live, and that's totally fine. But just kind of some thoughts that would be nice if you considered. Again, thank you guys so much for your time. This isn't easy, but thank you.
Mine short, but fellow Madam Chair and commission members, I am Ellie Vetter. I live at 1008 West 155th Street. And I just wanted to say that I agree, and I'm standing here with my neighbors to say I agree completely with them. So that's all I wanted to say is I'm here standing with them. Thank you.
Looks like we're ready for a motion.
Madam Chair, seeing no one else come forward, I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, the public hearing is now closed. All right, so the biggest one, Mr. Dempsey, I guess, can we touch on County Road 46 and just what our limitations are from a city standpoint, but also there's what the go-forward path for those that would like to reach out to the county and what that looks like.
Madam Chair, as I mentioned in my presentation, all plats in Dakota County that abut county roads are required to be reviewed by the Plat Commission, Dakota County Plat Commission. The county has an ordinance that gives control to the county to control accesses onto county roads. And also they will review plats that don't even propose access, but they review it to determine if additional road right-of-way is needed or if road intersections meet certain setback distances between other roads in that system. They also have, back when Streefland Addition was proposed, the county did identify Kendall as at that time as being in a location between Buck Hill Road and County Road 5, and their policy at that time was the same, as that they it met a distance for a right-in, right-out, but or a full intersection temporarily, but someday it could be a right-in, right-out, or it could be a three-quarter. And so when that development was approved, the county had that in place. So it's not a surprise to us, anyways, that work in this, that the county could potentially erase that when we submitted the plat to them. That was not the city's recommendation to do so. It was strictly from the county. The county highway department is the one that oversees that with the Plat Commission about where access locations are.
All right, thank you.
I know there were a lot of questions tonight, so I'll do my best between myself and things that have to do with the developer. You can address those too.
I think the next biggest one, and this would be, I think, for the developer, because it's talking about the private road access. So there were quite a few. If you could come up and kind of talk just about the pool being across the street and what is for pedestrians, obviously plowing, speeding, towing, like the general concern that it is a private street and not something that is controlled by the city?
Sure. So it's a private road, but it's got a public easement on it. So the city is a party to this agreement. The city attorney has been through that agreement and picked it apart in detail. So for instance, we can't just decide to shut down access to the public. We can't just put speed bumps in. We can't just at our discretion decide we're just going to shut the road down. We can't do it because it's a public easement. Snowplow, I would actually welcome the city to do the snow removal. We will do it, but I have actually broached this with the city about us paying the city to do it. So I have no issue with that.
Is that something that's still pending discussion? Okay. So pending discussion that the city could potentially be the ones plowing that private road.
Correct. But I understand the concern. I do. The no left turn, yes, it's brought up because of this project and because it triggered a county plat review. But if this was zoned what it was going to be with the Costco or a grocery store or something else, that was still going to be triggered. And not only that, there would be no road to get through to Buck Hill. So I acknowledge the frustration, I guess is my point. I don't live in a vacuum. But this was the solution. This was the solution given, and it's a public road, and we won't shut it down. We can't shut the road down, and I just want to be very clear about that.
Fellow commissioners, do you have any other questions on the private road piece? I was going to move to exiting on Buck Hill Road and the comments about like the short distance before.
Madam Chair, I did have some questions about private road versus public road, that type of thing, and just kind of wanted to explore this a little bit. This may be a question more for city staff maybe, but just kind of getting into when is a private road allowable versus a public road being required, that type of thing. Can we maybe talk about that a little bit in terms of how this project fits in with those requirements perhaps?
I'm not sure I can speak to when it's required or not.
Yeah, and I would defer to city staff here for sure.
I'll try to touch on that. I'm not, with the Public Works Department that makes these decisions, but it's really at the discretion of the city. If something was presented to us, I guess it's a matter of someone eventually deciding whether it's a reasonable consideration. The important part is making sure that access is maintained from one end of the Kendall Drive to Buck Hill Road. In the long term, it will be a benefit to the area to have multiple ways of getting in and out of the neighborhood, including Burnsville neighborhood to the north. When that property was developed, the street stub was presented right up to the property line. The city connected it, so that did bring that part of the neighborhood into this area. So it's the street is required to be constructed to city standards. It's required by the easement to be maintained at city standards with a maintenance schedule, et cetera. So it is a quality constructed road. It will have no parking on it. So the city will have to enforce the easement potentially. That gives the city the power to do that. So it's really a call for the city council ultimately to accept a private road.
Madam Chair, so just making sure I understand this correctly, it's not something that is in the zoning ordinances that dictates whether a private road is or isn't allowed. This is more of a discretionary decision by city council.
That's correct.
Madam Chair, question for Mr. Dempsey on whether it's private or public, does that affect the easement? Does the side easement, the width?
Yeah, the easement is wide enough to allow for public passage.
The question was more that if this was a city street, would the width and the additional width of the street be mandated to be wider?
Yeah, so the street section there, streets can range between 32 feet wide pavement section, or 40 feet depending on the area that it's located in. The primary area here is residential, the land use, and so that is a 32-foot wide street section, which is being proposed.
And then just to clarify that a little bit more, I was thinking
right
more
of
in
way.
terms of the setback.
The
from
right of way,
street.
yeah. So this does not have extra public right of way. So a residential street such as this that's being proposed to be a 60-foot right of way, and then from that would be an additional 30 feet for building setback.
Okay. So since it's private, does that take that away?
Yeah, there's no right of way. The city does not have right of way easements beyond the street pavement like a typical street does, which is about 14 feet beyond the curb line on both sides. And so, yeah, that is not included.
Madam Chair.
Mm-hmm.
And Mr. Dempsey, I don't know if this is for you or for the police department, but as far as enforcement goes on that private road, I know that you had mentioned that it will be posted for no parking on the street, but as far as unsafe driving, people parking on the street, would the city's easement that they're placing on that road, allow the police department to perform whatever functions it needs to?
I would defer that question to the ex officio expert law enforcement.
So public and private streets, I'd want to get the advice of our city attorney before speaking to it concretely, but there are certain things we can enforce and there are certain things we can't enforce as far as traffic law.
Okay. But, sorry, just going back to that. For means of public safety for access that easement would give the police department, the fire department, the necessary access to deal with public safety issues.
That's correct.
I would just add that I'm not going to get in the way of what law is and what isn't, but if that's a concern, I'd happily put that in the development agreement to let the police enforce the no parking. That's a benefit to us as well.
Anything else on the private road? Gonna move to the Buck Hill Road?
You want to lump in the getting to the clubhouse with the private road conversation or not?
Go for it.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair. So an additional concern that I had as I was looking at this proposal and thinking about this was the location of the private clubhouse for these units. As I was looking at the layout of the development, I guess I have a question for the developer or one of your professionals who may be able to better answer this. I was curious what the idea or concept for pedestrian access to the clubhouse might be. I see a parking lot there. I see the 5-foot sidewalks, I'd say right behind the curb line as shown on the plan. But as I was looking at where typical curb cuts might be shown for ADA access or other things, I was kind of questioning where pedestrian access to this clubhouse might be. So I'm wondering if you could better define that for me and lay out how or what is the expectation for the users of this townhomes to access that facility potentially on foot.
Hi, Mark Carmick with Alliant Engineering. Been working on this from early on. So yes, we have a sidewalk on the north side of this access road, and the plans aren't fully developed for construction documents and things. I see us adding the zebra striping crosswalks probably on each end of, say, the clubhouse development to cross that common drive.
Could you please point to where you think those will be?
Okay. Go ahead. So I'd say the primary access to the clubhouse will be here. I'm sure people have to go through a controlled access to get to the pool. I guess if needed, we could add another crosswalk over in this area, but I think definitely we would add one in this location.
Thank you.
I'll just put it on the table. One of my concerns when I thought about this, I understand the concept of putting a crosswalk there, that type of thing, but as I was looking at it, and I'm not a traffic engineer, I'm not a expert on pedestrian crosswalks, anything like that, but I was concerned with there not being, I'll say, like an intersection or some sort of cross street or something like that, providing kind of a connection, that type of thing, to that driveway. Just everything looks kind of offset here, and that would be kind of a floating crosswalk to me. So I'm not surprised at the answer to propose a crosswalk there. I'm questioning just whether or not how effective it might be, that type of thing. So I remain concerned about the location of the clubhouse relative to the rest of the development. I recall the previous proposal that had the clubhouse, I think, located over in the southeast corner of the development and that type of thing. But at that time, I'm not sure we had this conversation about access and private road and everything else. So just kind of seeing this float off on its own over here is giving me pause. So I'll just put that on the table.
Okay. And then there was concern on the distance that the private drive is coming out onto Buck Hill Road and the stoplight. So, Mr. Dempsey, I don't know if that's something that
Civil engineering.
or engineering.
The setback of the intersection of this private drive to Buck Hill Road does comply with the city's setback requirements for a public or private street. The setback that's proposed also does take into account the turn lanes in this area. There are a number of places in the city that have similar setback distances to busy intersections, so it's not too unusual.
Does anybody have comments on that one or other questions?
If we're going to,
It looks, to make a comment, it looks similar to kind of that right over there by Quick Trip, coming out onto Dodd right there. That kind of is similar, and I am comfortable with that. I know it sometimes takes a little bit of time to watch and wait for the traffic, but to me that is very similar to that over by that Quick Trip.
If I could, I might add, this is about as far north as it really could go to be effective because it provides good sight distances. The further north you go with this driveway, then it reduces the sight visibility a little bit. So it's in a location that does meet our setback requirements at the County Road 46.
Yeah. Madam Chair, maybe I'm picking at this a little bit, but correct me if I'm wrong, that location's already set because that was part of the Sundance
Oh, the medical
original
building.
medical building piece. So that's not even part of the conversation here tonight, where the location of that's going to be.
Good call.
and I'm not sure if this is for, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not sure if this is for the traffic study folks, if that's our staff over here, with the discussion of the 3-lane changes to go east on 46, and then the discussion of the traffic study being 1 day and the 2,000 trips, and if we could maybe expound on that a little bit.
Hello, Nick Rage with Alliant Engineering. So I just want to point out a few things with the traffic study. So we did an initial traffic study in June of 2021. We came back in September of last year and updated that with new turning movement counts, volumes out there. And then we've since updated it one more time to incorporate the county's requirement to include that three-quarter access. Typically, when we do a traffic study, we collect volumes for a 24 or 48-hour period. We are not looking for the highest volume throughout the entire year. We don't design our roadway systems for that. Most agencies have a general idea of what they want to see. It's usually weekday during a school year when there's more vehicles on the road. It's not weekends unless it's maybe up north with recreational traffic. And in this case, we've touched 3 different kind of time periods. Our initial data was from October 2017. When we updated it in 2021, it was from June 2021. And then more recently, it was from August 2023. We feel that these volumes accurately reflect what we see out there in the roadway network. So although the data, when we actually analyze it, is, yes, from one day, we're always looking at historical data and data on all the roadways to make sure that that one day accurately reflects the majority of days out there. As far as doing the study most recently, that did push more of the trips over to Buck Hill Road. So the analysis between the September study and the May study were different, but it still shows the intersections capable of handling that amount of traffic. I will note that at the three-quarter intersection, the only movement that is being diverted is that southbound left. That is about 73 left turns in just the AM and the PM peak hour, and about 360 left turns over the course of the day. So the diverted Kendall Road trips is about 365 trips. All the other movements could still use Kendall Road as they do today. And then as far as the turning onto Buck Hill Road across those multiple lanes, that's something that's actually not too far away. It's on the south side of 162nd. That roadway behind Bolero and McDonald's does the exact same thing, turns out across multiple lanes. Based on the analysis, the majority of the time there aren't vehicles sitting at the signal backed up waiting, so there's going to be no interaction with vehicles in or out. That's not to say that there won't be peak times with Buck Hill events or anything in the winter perhaps where there's a bunch of vehicles sitting at the signal. That it might happen sometimes, but it's not going to be a daily occurrence. It's not going to be something that people experience on their commute every single day. It's going to be kind of one-off things. So if there's any other traffic study or traffic-related questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
That kind of covered it for me for the
Okay.
questions that I had written down. I don't know if anyone else has.
So this might not, you might not be the best person to answer this, but I guess my question kind of relates on the other side of the property to that sidewalk and timing for kind of the extension. And, I know we talked about this a little bit, Mr. Dempsey, when the other project came before us, but kind of, can someone kind of maybe clarify when that sidewalk's being constructed and kind of where it will go, where it will end? I don't know if that's a city question or.
The sidewalk on Kendale?
Yes.
That will be extended with this development. We'll be extending the sidewalk through to DuPont Avenue.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so now I think all of the things that I have are kind of talking about the setbacks of the property being relatively close to power lines, the questions regarding screening, and the water drainage, and all of those. I guess actually the one, can we address Mr. Dempsey before kind of moving into those others? It's just about, so there were kind of 2 comments that came up regarding notification of personnel coming on for like surveying lands or like tagging trees and stuff like that. What is the general process of that? Is there a notification process, and how is that normally handled?
The city is not involved at all in the surveying crew that the developer hires to survey his property. I've heard that in past years, that people say that surveyors will come onto their property. I can't answer whether they're required to notify them. Their purpose of doing so is typically to locate where the property boundaries are, the markers. And as far as on that same topic, as far as trees being identified as tagged and numbered and including on the survey, is that the city doesn't ask them to do that. They don't encourage them to do that, but it does work because for information purposes, to make sure that the tree is identified as being there when the plan is submitted, instead of drawing a solid line. So if there's trees there that need to be saved, at least they can be identified, put on the plan as saved trees. If you're working within 5 feet or so, they don't typically go out that far. And sometimes they can identify them without on the survey without even going on the property. But we try to get all the trees identified so that we can use that as part of any of the preservation plan.
Okay, so now moving on to the, I guess, the questions regarding kind of the water drainage, the setbacks, being close to the power lines, and some of those questions, if you were able to come up and answer those.
So Mark Carmick again with Alliant Engineering. I have the grading plan here. So yeah, generally the site slopes to the south, and drainage will be coming from what is generally the top of the berm towards the south. When you get 200 feet or so, I don't know how to advance this to. I'm not seeing that. Okay. So Sam that had the blue house up here was talking about the eastern end being of concern, and we're not draining the water onto the adjacent property or the private residential lot. We're keeping it in a swale, and it's continuing to the east, and it's draining that way today. So we won't be creating any issues for the drainage on their property.
Madam Chair.
Yep.
Here's the shocker. The Water Resources Engineer and the Planning Commission's got not necessarily questions, but just kind of comments. So as part of the land development process and how this all works, I'm assuming you've prepared a stormwater report kind of addressing the pre-stormwater conditions on the site and the post-stormwater conditions on the site, kind of outlining rates and volumes of water and all the different directions it goes today and is proposed to.
Yep, our office did that, yep.
And so essentially what happens here is the engineer puts together a study. They evaluate the current conditions using current engineering practice and rainfall amounts, et cetera. And they determine what those rates and volumes are going in each direction from the site today, and they put together what those rates should be for the future based on what they're putting together with their design. So that's why you see some of these infiltration basins, stormwater ponds, that type of thing contained throughout the site. And then I'll take my question then to city staff, and then city staff, I'm assuming you take that hydraulics report, stormwater report, and you do a review on it, make sure the calculations appear correct, et cetera, and make those recommendations in your engineering letter and guidance to the developer.
Yes, we review the report to make sure that it conforms with our code of ordinances and all state requirements as well.
So essentially on the stormwater piece, as a planning commission, what we're deferring to here is city staff and their professional recommendations and assurances that that report prepared by the developer makes sense and conforms with all engineering practices, laws, and procedures. Fair enough? Okay. I'll end my speech.
Thank you. All right, can you talk about the setbacks and the power lines and the distance between and the concern with the screening additions?
Yeah, I'll do the best I can. Great River Energy, I think there was a comment about they didn't hear about this. My understanding is Great River Energy gave us comments back on screening this week, like maybe yesterday. So we will screen appropriately by choosing materials that they want to. We will screen, we can do more to screen if we want. I think, again, that's a benefit to both us and the neighbors. There's some talk about height. This is a haul off site, meaning we're taking a lot of fill off the site, so we're actually dropping the grade. So I don't think, my point is we're not just gonna take the existing grade and go drop a building on top of a hill that's gonna tower over the neighbors. Are they gonna see our buildings? Yes, but it's no different than looking at a new 2 or 3 story house that could be built across your property line. The setbacks, my comment on that is we're following the zoning code to the requirements. We're not asking for a variance or anything like that. We're following the city requirements as outlined in the zoning code. What else can I address?
Madam Chair?
Yeah.
Just on the screening, I know Mr. Dempsey mentioned it's not something that, we can impose as a requirement. The screening between your proposed single-family homes and the existing single-family homes in the neighborhood. But I do know that the Parks and Recreation Natural Resources Committee expressed a desire for you to consider that. Is that something that you would consider adding some screening in between the proposed single-family homes and the neighborhood?
Yes. I mean, we want to be good neighbors too.
Thank you.
And I understand some people just don't want the development, but to the point that we can help with things like that, we're happy to do it.
I appreciate your willingness to to address that.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
While we're on the topic of trees, and I know we've got the Parks and Recs recommendations and discussion and all that, I'm wondering if planning staff could just do a reminder to the Planning Commission and also for public education, what are rules for tree removal, that type of thing? What are the requirements that the developer must follow, which they are trying to do with this process, just again, for mostly public education purposes. It always comes up, it's always a question. So I think it would be good just to have a little refresher on what is city's current policy regarding that.
Yeah, Commissioner Swenson, the tree preservation policy that the city has is intended to preserve as many trees as possible that do not need to be taken down, essentially clear cutting, and then here's my development plan. It does work in some situations. It worked in the Streetland addition next to the west in a large part. But a lot of times it's easier with single-family developments. But if you have a development that's all commercial and needs parking lots and it meets setbacks, it's almost impossible to save any of the significant trees. It does work in border situations between properties. So there's a survey done of all the trees. Staff determines where it's reasonable to try to save trees. We work with the developer to do that. If the plan is adopted eventually by the city council and the trees are removed, the developer is required to replace those trees with a similar, better tree in 2 to 1. Of course, it's smaller than what might be coming down. I should point out that I did send the plan in mid-June to Great River Energy to have them take a look at the landscape plan. I heard back this week with comments. They're concerned about some of the large overstory trees. I think there were elm and some other trees in there that would grow tall, widen into that easement. They're suggesting keeping them back further. One of the stipulations of my report was to have a row of evergreen trees closer to the building as a double wide landscape screen, working with the developer on ideas for that. So we want to beef up the screening, but the screening and trees in some of those areas are probably going to be limited to, trying to think of the proper word this time of night, but kind of decorative trees. Trees that don't grow taller than 15 or 20 feet. We can try and make them as dense as possible. There aren't a lot of evergreens in that category. There are a lot of evergreens that are narrow, and working with that. So we are trying to maximize the screening as much as possible on the north property line. And I'm encouraged to hear that the developer's willing to work with screening for the single-family homes, because the city cannot require that, but we'll certainly work with them to do so.
Mr. Dempsey, ornamental trees? Is that the word you were looking for?
That's what I'm looking for, decorative ornamental. Yeah.
Happy to help you out. You're
Thank
doing
you
a
very
great job.
much.
We really appreciate your expertise.
So, Madam Chair, if I may continue. So I think the way to think about this is, the way this works for the developer is they've got a set of rules that we've put out there as city ordinances, codes, policies, all those types of things, that when they come in the door, these are the rules, this is the package that they essentially need to meet. We have some discretion on certain items, and in other things, we have rules that are in place for the developer to follow, and when the developer meets those rules, it basically, our decision is, does it meet that rule or not? And if it does, we're basically bound to vote yes on that type of requirement. So I guess the way I'll put it here, at least with the tree preservation piece, as planning staff sees it today, they're meeting the requirements of the ordinance as it lays out basically the rules that the developer has to play by. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
And, Madam Chair, kind of piggybacking off that in our tree preservation requirements, correct me if I'm wrong, but before any application is submitted to you, let's say even before this land was sold to the developer, that property owner would have a right to harvest all of the trees on the property if they so wished. And I think that we have had situations like that in the city where there were a lot of trees, and before they submitted an application, all of the trees were harvested, so they didn't have any trees that they had to preserve. So I do appreciate the developer, not doing that, not just following the letter of the ordinances in this regard, but following the spirit of it, because obviously you're making a product that you want to sell and people want to move into, and I think that it behooves you to have a beautiful property and product with a lot of trees.
All right, another question, electric vehicle plugins? Are you gonna have electric vehicle plugins?
So these are a little different because each unit here has their own individual garage. So if we were doing a mid-rise or a high-rise 4 or 5 story, we'd probably do vehicle charging stations in the parking lot. So the answer to this question is, this is really a resident coming in saying, I have an electric car, can you do anything? And we will work with the resident to put an electric charging option in their garage when they request one. We can't put them in all 167 garages. So we work with the resident if they come in with their Tesla or whatever they're driving.
Thank you.
Yep.
I think I might have captured all of them. Do you have additions? I guess taking a temperature of the Planning Commission on if you have additional questions, if you're comfortable. Yep.
So I had a few other things that I had on the list. One, I know there was some conversation about the power line relative to the drainage utility easements as shown on the plat, that type of thing. Part of what I noticed, at least in the documents that are in there, one of the things that isn't crystal clear, I think, to everyone is there is an overriding easement for the power line company that goes through this property as well, that isn't reflected in the drainage and utility easements that are shown on many of the engineering drawings, that type of thing. I'm not going to say whether or not it is accurate, whether it accurately confines that, but the power company has its own separate easement above and beyond what is shown on the plat itself. It will reference, likely the plat will reference that D&U easement as being in existence as that plat is recorded. So just something to acknowledge that the power line, the power company has their own easement, their own rights associated with that are above and beyond what the plat itself grants. So just a comment based on what I saw there.
Chair, I want to really thank city staff for a really thorough job on figuring out all of the lines and all of the detail work. And for those of you in the audience, we are given a packet and everyone can go online and look at things. And this commission really does a lot of homework before we get here to figure it out. I did drive to this location twice this time around, and once the first time, and making that left-hand turn was tough coming out of there, and I was coming out of there at 11 or 12, so the county's taking a look at that intersection and trying to figure out the best thing to do, and the city and the developer are have to comply with what the county determines. I think the developer's done a really good job of trying to accommodate the concerns and questions that were asked here about additional screening, about the private road, and I'm pleased to hear of the continuing conversation regarding the snow plowing, regarding the ticketing and towing for parking, and how it can all work together as a community to make sure that this is the best it can be. And I think they've done everything they possibly can as a developer, working with the city to make sure all of these pieces come together for a really nice addition for Lakeville.
Madam Chair, I had one or two other items left, I think, on my list. I tried to keep pretty extensive notes on what got commented on and everything else. There was discussion about the potential change in access. A comment was made that, the city could just consider putting a stoplight there at that intersection. To reiterate, it's a county road. It is not a city road. The city does not control whether a traffic light will go in there or not. The county makes those decisions. The city may be a partner in something like that, but again, the decisions on what that access looks like and everything else, that is the county's purview. So if you have questions, comments, concerns related to that, that should go to Dakota County. One other comment, if I may continue. There was a question about fire marshal and firefighting and how this might relate to that. I don't know if planning staff wants to jump in here at all. My understanding and how part of this works is when they apply for building permits, that's part of the building code that dictates what fire access needs to look like. I don't know if planning staff wants to further that comment.
Madam Chair, all I can add to that, because I'm not going to venture into the fire department, except my experience with them is that they have concerns about having access around the building, not always for vehicles, but being able to get from fire hydrants around different buildings. It could be a similar situation in a single-family home neighborhood where you have houses next to each other, deep lots, et cetera. But the fire department, and there's building code, fire code, and the fire department does look at these all development plans regarding access locations, fire hydrant locations, distance between them, et cetera.
Thank you.
I had a comment.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Good evening, Kim Behrens, Cost Wilson Architects. I just wanted to clarify that all the multifamily buildings are sprinklered to a 13R system. So that is a big deal. And the separations between the units, both floors and walls, are rated and covered in sheetrock so that if there is a fire, it contains it to one unit and doesn't take over the whole building. That's not a promise. Things can happen, terrible things can happen, but we are very careful about how we protect the occupants and spread of fire.
Thank you for that.
Madam Chair, just real quick on that. That is like above and beyond what the state building code requires, correct? Like, that's the code for the sprinklers?
Mr. Swenson, are you done?
I'm done with additional comments, and then I can opine later.
I had one other thing. I had to Google it. I've never heard of a poo prints community. So, you learn something new every day with this dog DNA. So you can find out who's been on your lawn. I never heard of such a thing, so that's really amazing. I'm all in favor of that.
I just want to bring this up because it came up earlier and I want to give the neighborhood an answer. And that is, we manage our own properties for a reason. It's so we have control over what happens and what our regulations are. We do income verification, we do credit checks for all our residents, and we do criminal background checks. And we're very particular about who lives in our buildings. Obviously, we adhere to fair housing, but to the extent that we can control and make it the safest place and choose the best residents, we do it. And we can do that by managing our own properties.
Madam Chair, on that, and our previous chair, who's no longer on the Planning Commission, would always ask this, for rental units, do you have crime-free, drug-free agreements in your rental agreements?
Yeah, I mean, we have, I don't know what you want to call it, like behavioral clauses in our agreements.
Perfect, thank you.
Commissioner Swenson, do you have more?
We done tackling all the odds and ends and minutia?
I think so, unless anyone has anything written down that I didn't cover.
My list is crossed off. Okay. So now we'll kind of get to where we are and what we're thinking, that type of thing. So first, I want to say, relative to this entire development and what's being proposed, how we've gotten here, I mean, this is the third stop, essentially, that this project has been in front of the Planning Commission and in front of these bodies in an official decision-making role. I supported this project when it came forth as the first iteration with the larger number of units. I supported this project with the comp plan amendment when it came forth with the smaller number of units in the medical office buildings. Recommended those without too much hesitation. I think the biggest thing in my mindset here, and I've heard a lot with the neighborhood and everyone else, for a desire for lower density, a desire for less dense development on this parcel. And I think the piece that sticks out to me here is this parcel was zoned commercial going back to roughly 2000. And there were conversations, proposals for large big box retailers, much higher intensity uses to go on this site, and potential for that under that zoning. So in my mindset, moving to a medium or lower multifamily type density project on this property, it's a lower intensity land use relative to what those potential commercial users may have been. Now, granted, none of those users came to fruition, and this is the first project that's really gotten to this finish line. So from that standpoint, I'm supportive of this concept. I'm supportive of this density. I'm supportive of what's going on with this proposal from that standpoint. And again, trying to create a transition from the single-family housing that exists to the west towards some of the commercial properties that exist to the east in the 35 corridor, to speak correctly to that. So I think land use-wise and everything else, I'm supportive of what's going on here, and with the down gauge to get to this level of development, I think is appropriate. For me, what I am struggling with this proposal comes down to the private road, and some of those issues related to the private road. Some of this is not the developer's creation. There's nothing that says the county is going to come in and restrict that left turn access onto County Road 46 today, tomorrow, any particular date. They have to program a project, they have to think about that, but it's on my mind in terms of what that's going to do to traffic flow through this. So that private versus public road concerns me. I've worked with municipalities in the past that have had issues with private roads and developments, and paying for improvements, snow plowing services, that type of thing. And I respect the heck out of the developers who are proposing this and the folks who want to own this. So I'm not trying to disparage them in any way, shape, or form when I'm talking about potential pitfalls with private roads. But what concerns me here is most cases with private roads, that road is intended to serve the internal customers. So in this case, the residential units or the medical office buildings, that type of thing. In this case, with that potential for that left turn closure, I just see this as being more fitting for an actual public road in this situation and scenario. That's a decision, as was outlined, that this is something for the city council to decide. And it's up to their opinion. My personal opinion in this case, I'm not comfortable with the private road piece. So that's where I come down on this. I also outlined a little bit with my concerns with access to the clubhouse, somewhat related to that private road and the lower setbacks that kind of result as a piece of that. But those are really what my main concerns are as I looked at this. Some of that decision's already kind of out the door because the first edition's already approved on this. I wasn't part of that conversation. I wasn't able to be here. But that's where I'm coming down with this, that for me, I like the proposal. I like what we're doing here, like the land use density. I'm struggling with that private road piece. That's probably going to be what swings my vote towards a no on this, but it doesn't have anything to do with the density, doesn't have anything to do with what's being proposed, the developers, anything like that. It strictly is that road issue. That's where I'm coming down on this.
Madam Chair. Thank you, Commissioner Swenson, for kind of laying out the timeline of where this project has come through. We have seen this in several iterations and stages, and this whole area has changed. I've lived in Lakeville since 1990. It was zoned single family for a while, and it was commercial for a long while, and this whole area has changed. I mean, I remember when there was not a bridge over the freeway there, and growing up in Lakeville, kind of seeing this develop, and I remember when a lot of these houses around there weren't constructed, but when the even the businesses around there didn't exist, and it was different, and it's changed, and I understand the concerns about that left turn and that access, and I think Commissioner Swenson did said it that there is no timeline on when that changes happen, and this going in front of the County Plat Commission, once again brought it to their attention, but so could another project, further down the line or further the east or further the west. The county's going to do what it's going to do, and it's going to take into account kind of that overall traffic on County Road 46, and the county really does not want that many accesses onto county roads, and it's a safety issue for them. And I hope that they keep that left turn out for as long as it is safe to do so. I hope the county kind of takes into consideration, and the county staff are hearing the concerns of the residents as that kind of goes forward. But it is not happening immediately. It's not happening in conjunction with this project. And I think, Mr. Dempsey addressed it. It's not in the county's 5-year capital improvement plan, i.e. the county has not budgeted money or planned for this to be done within the next 5 years. Now, circumstances could change that going on, but in my experience, working on transportation issues at the state level, if it's not in the plan, it's not going to happen. I am comfortable with the density. I think I'm really happy with the product, and I think that the developers put together a solid product. And I think that the reason that they're building is a testament because people want to move to this community. It's the reason we all moved here. And like I said, I've lived in Lakeville since 1990. I grew up in this community. I came back to this community. This community has grown dramatically over that time. And it's a testament because people like this city. They appreciate the schools. They appreciate the amenities we have. And I am happy that we are offering this type of housing product in the city for other residents that want to move here. I have a lot of friends that, just the other week came down for Panaprog, and they were all like, we want to move to Lakeville, but we, want to find something that we can afford and that we can rent. And I think that there are a lot more people that will want to move to this community, and I appreciate the developer wanting to make a product that people will want to buy. And I also really want to thank the developer for their willingness to walk through all of this with us and to hear the residents' concerns. And finally, I just want to say I really do appreciate all the residents coming out, and some of you for coming out multiple times over the past few years and sharing with these concerns. And I think the developer has heard them. I think the city staff has heard them, and I appreciate the work of both the developer and the city staff that they put into this project. And I will be voting yes, and I just really want to once again thank everyone for coming out and sharing with us.
Madam Chair. I'll be supporting this development. I think it's the right development for the land that's there. Echoing some of Mr. Swenson's concepts is that, other interest in this would have been a lot more invasive, I guess, better way of putting it. If we were to do large commercial in there, big box, a lot more traffic all day, all night. I think from a housing perspective, we need to continue to look for diversified housing. I think if you look at the cost of housing in Lakeville, it's pretty expensive, hard to buy. So we need to make sure we have those options available that people can rent. I very much appreciate the owner-managed process on this. I think that delays and puts away some of the concern of who the renters may be. And I think we need to be careful when we talk about that, because not everybody can afford to buy a house, and they deserve housing as well. I do have concerns on the private road. I think that's an issue that is just kind of out there. It fixes some of the issue that may occur, but I don't know if I like the concept of Lakeville doing that on a more broader perspective. I think Lakeville should own and control their roads. And from there, I think I just, as I had indicated, I'll be in favor of the project.
Are we at the point that we're ready for a motion, or do we have additional? No?
Madam Chair. A motion to recommend approval of the Sundance Lakeville Second Addition preliminary plat and conditional use permit, subject to the 12 stipulations listed in the July 12, 2024 planning report, and approval of the findings of fact dated July 18, 2024.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Ms. Morrow, will you please take a roll call vote?
Kaluza.
Aye.
Tinsley.
Aye.
Marovich.
Aye.
Zimmer.
Aye.
Ink.
Aye.
Swenson.
Nay.
And when will this go in front of? You need to.
I was going to remind Commissioner Swenson to provide.
To expand on reasoning, then that's fine. Again, I just again want to state, I think overall concept, product, everything else that's going on here, I'm fully supportive of what you're doing with that. My concern lies primarily with that private road concept. Purpose and need for that roadway and how that lays out is really what my concern is for future maintenance needs for the city, and how that all comes together. So again, product is fine. I like what you're doing with this. I want you to hear that loud and clear. It is simply that private road issue that really is what's tipping me into the nay vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Swenson.
When will this go in front of City Council?
We're looking at August 5th. That may just be for the preliminary plat, with the final plat to follow at a later council meeting, but we'll be determining that in the coming days.
All right. And with that, the meeting is adjourned.